Well, another glorious day out on the land. I'm going to show new toy mowers. So this is a all-wheel drive Husqvarna. It's a robot mower. Husqvarna, I think, or someone will correct me, but I think Husqvarna have been doing commercial robotic mowers for the best part of 30 years. And I have to admit, I've looked at a lot of them. I spent about 8 months researching robot mowers before actually taking the plunge and buying one. And I'll explain why in a bit, but I've been very impressed with both the mower's efficiency, build quality, and the app, as well as the dealer network. So the combined solution is a very good one. Now, what's interesting with this is that you can get a variety of different sizes. This is one of the bigger ones. It's all-wheel drive, so it's got a drive unit at the front and a little dolly wheel at the back. This unit turns round, and you've got driving wheels in the back, so it can cope with, I think, 70-degree slopes, which is quite staggering. So I'm going to talk about a few things that are involved in this and why I bought it. The interesting thing is I'm mowing paddocks, not lawns, and these are basically, they're called robot lawn mowers, and this is kind of the type of land that you can mow with it. We're talking acres and acres and acres and very steep land. You can't even see the edge of the fields here. There's a huge drop off. Cameras don't do it justice. You can see the fence disappearing down the hill, and this is a rutted field which used to have sheep and horses in, and whilst it doesn't look like it bumps like these ones, they're ankle turners, so you can see rabbit holes and all sorts of things, and old fence lines. Now, some of this required some prep work beforehand, and I'll talk about that in a bit as well. But we've also got another field here, and all in all, we're just shy of 4 acres, about 3.75 acres, and Husqvarna mows all of it pretty much twice in a week. Now, how does it do it? Well, firstly, you've got a blade cutting head. These are not the official terms, these are kind of just me simplifying it. The cutting head's up at the front, and it's got a disc that spins round with little tiny, what look like razor blades, and you'd think they'd be far too flimsy, and they just spin round and they nip the tops off the grass. I have it set at 7 centimetres high, which for a paddock is fantastic. In a lawn, you could go down to 1 or 2 centimetres, I think, are the lowest settings on something like this. And the rear bit is the articulated sort of steering aspect of it. So this moves around and repoints the mower in a specific direction. And it will go back into and navigate bumps and the ruts and things like that they have in the land, and manages to go through a field. Let's have a look. So this top field here, so we're just about 3/4 of an acre here. So this lot it will do in about 10 to 12 hours, a little bit less than that, depends on charge times, because it takes about an hour to charge, and it will probably do maybe 3 charges to do this, and it just comes back and charges itself up on the base station that's here. So this base station is mains powered, so I've actually run cables from my stables all the way down there, so I can run mains here. I don't need to. I could have put the base station down at the stables and let it drive up. That would have probably said £200 in cabling, but having said that, it would have spent more time travelling to and from the base station. So I kind of thought, well, I'll stick it in the middle. Now, in addition to the base station being plugged in, there is also, just about see it if I zoom in onto the end of the stables, there's a little antenna unit there. Now that is a radio technology rather than GPS, which the device has on here. It's got a GPS receiver there, and it uses those combination of technologies to pinpoint exactly where it is down to the centimetre. So it makes it very, very accurate. You can run wire into the ground with these, especially if you've got tree coverage and things like that, where you couldn't get a satellite reception. You'd put in wire and just say this is a boundary wire. If you go over the boundary wire signal, then stop, turn around and go back and carry on. But this uses purely GPS up here with the antenna down there just as a calibration. So those two bits are required. In terms of what we do to set the thing up, well, actually, that was incredibly easy because we just have a Husqvarna dealer come and set all of this up for us and install it. We did the cabling, and there's a lot of prep work on the land that we did in advance, but they come and install it and configure it. They drive the Husqvarna around the boundaries, so the fence lines, so all the way up the fields, they'll just go clockwise all the way around the fields and then drop a pin every few meters or so, and then that marks the boundary, and they'll split the fields up into different zones so that you can mow one bit and not another. So I set the top field, so basically from the old fence line up, to be one field, and then the lower part of the field as another one, and same for the fields the other side of the fences. So I can set a schedule for it to do one bit then another. Very, very efficient. It does it by itself in terms of mowing and figuring out how to navigate the field and how to get in and out of the field. It will sort all of that out by itself. You just set the schedule to say, for this field, cut it at this time on this day, and just leave it, let it run. We have it running in all weathers. We've had it running for a month in rain, hail, baking sun, the dust, everything else, and it just carries on. No maintenance required really on the mower itself. We had only one thing, I think, in terms of just getting used to it. We had a lot of dust get underneath the control button that's on here, so you've got security start and stop for safety reasons. We had some dust get underneath the button there, but that button just lifts out and clean the dust, and then you can control it from the mower console, which has got an LCD display that basically says what it's doing. So at the moment it's just in charge mode. Now everything else is controlled by the app, which I'll do some screenshots of the app separately so you can see actually how it operates. But in terms of what it does an incredible job. You can just about see the stripes. If I have a look at that field, that it's just finished this field, and you can see it's very nicely done. I mean, better than we can get with a flail mower or topper mower on the back of the tractor. So normally I would use my big tractor that's up there, matching colours. It's not coincidental. That's my design aesthetics, everything matching, but also so I can actually see it from the house when it's up and running. It has little headlights on the front, which is lovely, but sometimes it kind of disappears into the sort of greeny grey covering. You can't quite see it as my eyesight's getting rubbish as I'm getting older, so the bright orange is quite useful. I don't want to drive over it in the tractor in the dusk, so yes, it's quite visible. Right, in terms of basic running, it's sort of fire and forget. The dealer sets up the boundaries, you set up the schedule, and just leave it, and it will just get on and run by itself. You have two ways of controlling it really locally. You've got the native app that I'll show you in a bit. You can use Bluetooth to connect to the device if you're within distance like this, and some controls you can only do when you're, for safety reasons, you can only do it when you're actually close to the device, such as editing the boundary lines. There is some console controls, as I said, on the front, but really that's sort of pause, start and stop. Should you need to change the blades or something like that, you can stop the unit, tip it up and work on it, and there's instructions on how that's done in the app, but really that's something you do every 3 months. Another thing to note is it has got the off-road tyres, which have got these little knobbly bits on. They're I think an optional extra, but very low cost extra, and is probably very sensible to have. So it's just got a bit more grip. It needs those to do the higher inclines, so well worth the few dollars extra that it costs for that. Covers, as I say, I've got the orange covers, but they're an optional extra, but yeah, it looks very, very nice. Okay, so in terms of what it's capable of doing, so I set it to do one field, the next one, and the next one, and then rotate round those on a sort of twice a week basis, and then just leave it. It doesn't need to do anything. It updates you on the app when it's started and stopped and completed tasks, so it's very easy to see what it's up to. But yes, very straightforward. Next thing I'm going to just touch on is the maintenance of the land prior to getting one of these in, because you can't just put it on a uncut field. On a garden, you just mow the garden first. But what I did on this field, because it never had really even been flailed, just topped. So what I did is I had the fence lines all trimmed. So when we were calibrating the mower and setting up the different zones for each of the fields, is we could walk along the fence line and get as close as it's possible to do, and then the mower will run along that boundary line as it starts the process. We then also had to go and deal with any big ruts and bumps, so we had some major ones. There's some stuff here, basically almost like a sinkhole. So I had to fill some of these with gravel or sand or soil in various different ones, and then the old fence line, which had all sorts of stuff, rabbit holes and things like that. This was very, very bumpy. You couldn't walk across it. Had to sort of backblade this with the tractor and prep all of that land so that it was passable, and then the mower just goes straight over that, no problem. So a little bit of work is required to get the best out of it, but if you do that, the mower just runs faster and faster. It just gets more and more efficient as it gets over tufts and what have you. And as you'll see, I have it set on the high setting, so it doesn't have to get really low. As I say, this is a field, not a lawn, so I'm just staying on top of the effort. Okay, so I'm going to talk briefly on the prep work I had to do before bringing this onto site. So main thing is boundaries. I had the fence line trimmed, then ran a finishing mower and or a flail mower down the sides and where the ruts are, just to take out the worst of it. So there was a big fence that went all the way along here, and it was very rutted along here, lots of rabbit holes and ant hills and all sorts of stuff. So I ran the flail mower down there and just flattened it, so some of those big heavy duty tools are still useful, and the tractor is very useful for getting all of these items ready. But once that's done and you've filled in holes, like the worst of them where we've got these big ruts, the camera doesn't do it justice, but that was a huge hole there, and I've just dirt filled that, and there's still more to do, but that was one of the worst ones. And once that prep work's done, you just again fire and forget with the Husqvarna, and it will just go around and mow everything as you see fit. So where I haven't done, so there's just an example down here, I've not brought the boundary line right up to the fence here. I've got to take the flail mower all the way down the fence line, and ideally not ripping out the mains electrics as I do that. And then that will allow me to bring the boundary for the mower closer to the fence, as I've done in the fields up at the back. And that will just mean it will look a little bit tidier. I'll probably weed kill the edges anyway in the fullness of time, so nothing grows so close to the fence line, which obviously keeps the fence post lasting a little bit longer. So prep work really was boundaries to make sure they're clear, ruts, make sure that they're filled, cleared and smoothed as best as possible. And then for the first sort of 2-3 weeks is just following the mower around. If it gets stuck on somewhere really bad, then you just go and tamper it down, or for me, taking the tractor and the back blade just to pull the ground even. So a little bit of work required on a field. If you've got a lawn, you're not going to have those issues, especially with a device like this. In terms of purchasing these things, now this is not a cheap lawnmower. If you were to buy one retail with all the bits and pieces that we've got here, you're probably looking north of about £6,000, about $7,000 US. I'm not quite sure what they'll retail in the UK. So how much does it cost? Well, if you were to buy one outright, you'd be looking at probably just north of £6,000 with the various different options that are on here. Having said that, Husqvarna are very interesting because they do a lease system, so like you would lease a car. I didn't pay £6,000 for this, I just lease it on a monthly basis, and they have various special offers and what have you. So you're probably looking somewhere in the region between 170 and 140 £1,000 per month on a lease, and it's owned by Husqvarna. They include the warranty for it. Obviously things like consumables like blades they don't cover, but all the maintenance they cover, the installation is included. Theft insurance is included. I mean, stealing one of these is nigh on impossible because it won't work without the Husqvarna closed network. So it becomes a very big paperweight if someone took it. But Husqvarna warranty this, service it, maintain it, with the exception of the blades, and after 3 years I give it back and get the next latest version, and that's an awful lot of peace of mind when this thing has covered best part of 600 kilometers in its first month of use. You can imagine the wear and tear that might be incurred over a longer term of the use of the device. Having said that, it's in fantastic condition. There's not a mark on the thing really, and underneath it's spotless. So even with the mileage that we're putting on it at the moment, I think this thing's just going to keep going. And you do see them advertised for sale, and people have had them for sort of 8 or 10 years. So I suspect this is a device that would just keep going. But from a finance point of view, it made more sense to do a lease, especially as it's my first one. So this is the main page that basically says what it's doing, where it is, and the default settings for it. And you can see a nice stylized picture of what it is. And it says what it's doing in terms of charging. So and it's 48% charged, and it's going to start again in about just over half an hour or so. And it says what section it's due to complete in terms of the different fields. So it's going to do my top section of my field, which is about an acre. It's 5% done, and you've got a few override options on here. The main thing that I look at is schedule, but I also look at the map view. So if I go into schedule, it just lists the different fields and the date and times that they're set to do. So some fields are just set to do 24 hours maximum on one field, and then the next day it will go to a different field, and so on and so on. So that's the schedule. You can get to that through a couple of different places. Now here's the layout that we've got. Top field, I'm actually sat in the largest one, the field up in here. It's set to active, and I can access the schedule again from here. I can override the default cutting height, but and even down to the pattern. So if I wanted the stripes to go a different way, I could do. I don't need to do that at all. So I've actually run the charging point, which I'll show you, up to the middle of the field, so it's equidistant. You don't have to do that, but it just reduces the travel time. So if it had to get to the other fields from, say, my stables where there's a power point more readily available, it would just have a little bit more travel time back and to. So I've just put it equidistant in the middle. It uses GPS for tracking, but it's also got the base station, which, as you can see, is the little antenna on the stables here. And that's where it uses a calibration from the GPS and a radio just to manage any offsets, and that's what gets it so accurate. If they just use wire only, then you've got the hassle of putting wires in, and you can use wires on these Husqvarna mowers as well. Or if you've got GPS, if you go underneath tree canopies, which thankfully I don't have, it loses the satellite. So the combination of using GPS for positioning and a radio transmitter for just getting a high degree of accuracy is the best combination that I found for my type of open fields. But you don't have to have this at the base station. You could put everything together, it doesn't matter, but the radio transmitters down by the stables, plugged in and powered up down there, and then we've got the base station here. And you'll see a few different bits and pieces on the screen. You'll see several different fields, of 4 fields with a slight overlap. I do the overlap on the borders to allow for turning round if there's no fence between the two. We've got the blue lines showing the travel into the different active areas, and we've also got a red marked area, which is a stay out zone. So that just shows the basics, and when Husqvarna or their dealers come out and set this up, they do all the configuration. But to mark the edges of these areas, they walk around with the mower in basically a remote control mode, and that's and they drop a pin, say for example at each corner or each specific point, like maybe there's a fence area or something like that, but they'll follow the fence line all the way down. And if you've got an area where the mower just couldn't pass, then they'll just mark around that. You can go in and edit these areas, which is very interesting. If I go in and edit this, you've got to be in Bluetooth range to do the edits, and if you change it, it will reset the mower and it will reload that map. So really you shouldn't change it if it's part way through something. Now you can go and find a area, pick a point, move it and say I want to move this point in, say 5 centimeters, and you'll see it will move that little boundary arrow. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to cancel, go back out of that, discard. What else do I use on this? You can switch areas on and off. I don't tend to bother, we just leave it in. There's a little area here that we've just added that needs a little bit of pre-work before we go mow that with a mower. So you just get it down to low level, like strim it. So this is on a side of a steep bank, so we're going to strim that first and get rid of all the tufts and things so they can just go up, down and finish. If you have too many obstacles in the way, it will mow around them, but you're just wasting time, and the clearer you can have the field, so it can just go up and down, the more effective and efficient the machine is, so you can do more areas. So we've got that as a little separate zone that we just recently added. What else you've got in the app? A few bits and pieces. You can shop to buy more mowers if you wanted, or blades or things like that. The bit that I look at the most is the statistics. So you've got a few bits and pieces under here. Statistics is the one that's interesting. So you can see how many hours it's been running since I've got it, how many kilometers it's done, which is quite staggering really, charge cycles it's done, hours it's spent charging, how many collisions. Now this doesn't mean that it's stopped, it just means it's hit a bump and it's reset itself and gone around the obstacle and carried on. Very rarely will it actually get stuck and need manual intervention, so I think I come out maybe once a week perhaps to do something on it. But once you've got the mower running and you've cleared obstacles out of it, it just carries on. But ideally you'd have less collisions with little things that would be tufts or rabbit holes or something like that on my fields, which they're quite rutted. So on a lawn you would see almost nothing on this by comparison. Blade usage, I've not replaced the blades yet, so in the first month of usage they're all razor sharp still, and I think they supply a sort of year's set with it. Yeah, we've in best part of 600 kilometers we've not had to replace the blades, so I think it's going to be probably a quarterly replacement. You've also got some support activities, so you can see the link to the owner's manual. The owner's manual is a bit sparse, especially in terms of understanding the application, but the general maintenance is quite high level, so you're better off going to the dealer if you want to know how to do something quirky and the manual doesn't tell you. Then the dealers are very, very useful. We've not had any troubleshooting issues, any maintenance issues. We just give it a bit of a dust over and a clean, but that's where all the information is. So generally we're just looking at this to see what it's doing and where it is. So that's the app in general, very straightforward to use once it's set up by the dealer, yeah, just sit down, watch it being busy. Big shout out to Pallisers, who are fantastic. Matt was the guy who came out from Pallisers to install it. He also came out originally to make sure that it would work on my land, so they weren't pushy in terms of sales, but they were very confident it would work, and I was very skeptical, but they were patient with me, came out, brought the machines out, looked at the land, helped us prep everything, gave us loads of advice at the end of a WhatsApp if I've got any questions. So extremely good dealers, based in Hereford in the UK. Highly recommended. They do travel all over the country to do installations, and they sold me the tractor as well. Neil at Pallisers sold me that tractor, and I'm very happy with that. You can see that on my other videos. So yeah, big shout out to them. If you say I referred you, then maybe Matt will buy me a coffee eventually. So how much does it cost? Well, if you were to buy one outright, you'd be looking at probably just north of £6,000 with the various different options that are on here. Having said that, Husqvarna are very interesting because they do a lease system, so like you would lease a car. I didn't pay £6,000 for this, I just lease it on a monthly basis, and they have various special offers and what have you. So you're probably looking somewhere in the region between 170 and 140 pounds per month on a lease, and it's owned by Husqvarna. They include the warranty for it, obviously things like consumables like blades they don't cover, but all the maintenance they cover, the installation is included, theft insurance is included. I mean, stealing one of these is nigh on impossible because it won't work without the Husqvarna closed network, so it becomes a very big paperweight if someone took it. But Husqvarna warranty this, service it, maintain it, with the exception of the blades, and after 3 years I give it back and get the next latest version, and that's an awful lot of peace of mind when this thing has covered best part of 600 kilometers in its first month of use. You can imagine the wear and tear that might be incurred over a longer term of the use of the device. Having said that, it's in fantastic condition. There's not a mark on the thing really, and underneath it's spotless. So even with the mileage that we're putting on it at the moment, I think this thing's just going to keep going. And you do see them advertised for sale, and people have had them for sort of 8 or 10 years. So I suspect this is a device that would just keep going. But from a finance point of view, it made more sense to do a lease, especially as it's my first one. I'm not quite sure what I was getting into, so rather than having a big financial outlay and then being worried about it, it's a case at least took the concern out of it and allowed me to keep the capital for something else. Right, so in summary, very impressive piece of kit. Dealers have been brilliant. Husqvarna's lease program just makes so much sense. The device itself is extremely capable. The app is intuitive and informative, and it's far surpassed my expectations in terms of what could be done with a robot mower, and it's freed up my time, so I'm off doing other jobs instead, which when I'm time poor, this is a real game changer. So highly recommended. I'm very pleased with it, and one of my better purchases. Long may that continue.